Crack open any science textbook and you'll find his name, Albert Einstein. He's the genius with the wild hair and the dreamy gaze who's revolutionized physics and became a symbol of intellectual brilliance. But did you know there's more to the story? Fleeing from the vicious grip of Hitler's Nazi regime, Einstein, a German-born Jew, sought refuge on American shores in the early 1930s. He quickly became a celebrated figure in his new homeland, America embracing this genius who had escaped the clutches of tyranny. His groundbreaking theories in modern physics, particularly relativity and quantum mechanics, coupled with his iconic equation E=mc², catapulted him to a status few scientists ever achieve. In the eyes of many, Einstein was not just a brilliant physicist, but a bona fide hero. But every story has more than one side, and Einstein's is no exception. The public image of this brilliant physicist doesn't tell the full story. Behind the scenes, Einstein's life was complicated. As we look deeper into his life, we uncover a side that doesn't fit the hero narrative. The man who reached for the stars had himself tangled up in controversy and personal flaws. The story of Albert Einstein's life in America cannot be told without mentioning the FBI's intriguing role in it. Einstein, being a Jewish refugee, fled Germany due to Hitler's rise. He was a vocal advocate for left-wing pacifist ideologies. However, his political ideologies, particularly his opposition to war and fascism, drew suspicion from the American government. After his arrival in the US in 1933, kicked off 2 decades of FBI surveillance. One key point of interest was an alleged death ray. In 1933, newspapers across the globe sensationalized the concept of a death ray, a high-energy beam which Einstein was supposedly developing. However, this was pure science fiction. Einstein was working on no such thing. Einstein's 1,800-page-long FBI file, the result of 22 years of constant surveillance, interestingly revealed no criminal wrongdoing. Despite the suspicions and surveillance, Einstein contributed significantly to the US military science during World War II, playing a crucial role in the development of nuclear weapons. He penned a letter to President Roosevelt in 1939, warning of Germany's nuclear capabilities and urging the US to develop its own. His letter, known as the Einstein-Szilard letter, triggered the start of the Manhattan Project. Yet, following the devastation of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Einstein deeply regretted his role, stating, "Had I known that the Germans would not succeed in producing an atomic bomb, I would never have lifted a finger." Unveiling Einstein's tense relationship with the FBI reveals a side of him that doesn't quite fit the heroic image, underlining the complexity of this scientific titan. While Albert Einstein's scientific achievements are legendary, the same cannot be said for his relationships and marital life. Einstein had a reputation for being a womanizer, treating his relationships like a sport rather than commitments. His relationship with women was complex and often cruel. He had a tendency to treat women less as equals or partners and more as intellectual pursuits to be won. Once the conquest was achieved, he often dismissed their emotional needs and desires. Moreover, allegations of domestic abuse add another troubling layer to Einstein's relationship with women. A recent book entitled Einstein's Wife by Andrea Gaber brings to light claims of abuse suffered by Mileva Maric at the hands of Einstein. This dark aspect is prominently displayed in his tumultuous relationship with Mileva Maric, his first wife. A talented physicist herself, Maric sacrificed her career to support Einstein's ambitions. Yet, instead of valuing her sacrifices, Einstein embarked on extramarital affairs, causing a gradual but definitive disintegration of their marriage. His treatment of Maric was far from admirable. When their marriage teetered on the brink of collapse, Einstein presented her with a contract dictating humiliating terms for their continued cohabitation. A particularly damning piece of evidence comes from the contract, which read, in part, "You will renounce all personal relations with me, insofar as they are not completely necessary for social reasons." In 1919, they divorced, and in the same year, Einstein married his cousin, Elsa. But even in his second marriage, Einstein continued his pattern of infidelity. His personal life reveals a troubled and complicated man, a stark contrast to his polished public persona. Einstein was not a good father. He had multiple children, both legitimate and illegitimate, but the sad truth is, he wasn't there for them. His daughter Liesel, for instance, was born when he wasn't married to her mother, Mileva Maric. Liesel was put up for adoption and tragically died from an infection while still a child. She never met Einstein, and there's no record of him showing any sorrow or regret over her fate. Then there's the case of his son Edward. After Einstein divorced Maric and moved to the US, Edward suffered a mental breakdown. He was institutionalized in Zurich, and Einstein never visited him again. Einstein's relationship with his other son, Hans Albert, was strained as well. Although he provided financially for him, there was no real emotional bond between them. It was as if Einstein saw fatherhood as a financial duty, not as an emotional one. These stories paint a picture of a man who, despite his genius, struggled with the basic human responsibilities of being a parent. Records show that Einstein, often celebrated for his humanitarian outlook, was full of racial prejudice himself. These views came to light when Einstein's travel diaries were published. In these diaries, Einstein wrote about his travels through Asia in the 1920s. His remarks about the people he encountered were far from kind. He described the locals in some regions as industrious, filthy, lethargic people, and went on to make other demeaning comments, reflecting clear biases. Beyond just individual impressions, he went on to generalize entire races and cultures, deeming them inferior based on his limited interactions and observations. This goes to show that Einstein, like many of his contemporaries, was a product of his time. Back in the early 20th century, racial stereotypes were widely accepted and often unchallenged, but that doesn't excuse these prejudices. Einstein, with his remarkable intellect, should have known better. These documented instances of racism add another layer to the dark side of Albert Einstein. A not so well-known fact about Albert Einstein is his connection to the eugenics movement. Eugenics, the practice of improving the genetic quality of the human population through selective breeding, is a controversial topic with deep ethical implications. Einstein, surprisingly, was not against the concept. He was one of the signatories of a manifesto supporting eugenics in 1939, which raised a few eyebrows even back then. His stance was contrary to the humanitarian image he projected and far from his much celebrated intellect. The support for eugenics has sparked several controversies. Its fundamental idea promotes inequality among humans, suggesting some are genetically superior to others. This concept has been widely criticized and is considered ethically unacceptable today. Einstein's connection to such a contentious movement raises questions about his understanding of human rights and equality. Despite his monumental contributions to physics, this association with eugenics adds a troubling chapter to his legacy. Did you know that Einstein's work was allegedly plagiarized? There have been claims that Einstein, the paragon of scientific originality, might have borrowed some of his groundbreaking ideas without giving people their due credit. One significant instance that critics often point to is the formulation of the theory of relativity. Some argue that the mathematician David Hilbert had developed the equations for general relativity before Einstein. Similarly, the physicist Henri Poincaré had explored the principle of relativity before Einstein's paper on the subject. Yet, in both cases, Einstein did not acknowledge their work. The exact merit of these allegations is a topic of heated debate among historians. Some consider them as mere understandings of the scientific process, where multiple researchers independently arrive at similar ideas. However, others see them as evidence of Einstein's propensity to appropriate the work of others. If true, they question the very foundation of Einstein's genius, implying that his most famous work may not be entirely his own. In dissecting the darker aspects of Einstein, we learn that the line between a hero and a human is often blurred, leaving us to ponder, can greatness truly exist without its accompanying dark side? If you liked the video, please like, share, and subscribe.